Today we're going to be exploring one of the Yoga Sutras that has definitely been on my mind as of late, especially with pandemic and literally all these different changes happening. And it's Yoga Sutra 1.12. So Yoga Sutras being that from Patanjali. This particular sutra really talks about the paradox of committing to your practice, your yoga practice, and the letting go of your yoga practice. So we'll be looking into the idea of paradoxes today. And I'll be reading from this book here, Other Ways of Knowing, that kind of talks about how we can move into a deeper understanding of ourselves, especially with these Western ideas that we have to know, and there has to be this duality that exists. But what happens when we enter into paradox? So if you'd like to get started into a comfortable seat or maybe lying down, we'll be entering into something more meditative to really start to theme the class and further discussion surrounding Sutra 1.12. So get set up as you'd like, your own chosen position. We'll be here for about 15 breaths. So that's about 1 to 2 minutes, depending upon how fast or slow that you're breathing. So this idea of paradoxes can really present a constraint, especially in a Western society. In more Eastern philosophy, this idea of a paradox is seen a lot. But in Western philosophy, we usually look at things from light, dark, opposites, cold, hot. So we continue to see these themes brought up every single day. But what happens when everything can exist at one time and be on opposite ends of the spectrum? How do we move in from there? So it's exceedingly difficult for us in the modern West to accept the proposition that our way of knowing is somewhat of a constraint. Why? Why is this? In part because paradoxes are really the exact opposite of duality, this either-or system. It's the conviction that our scientific method is of a different order from all other human systems of understanding. So what can we do when we're presented with a paradox, and how can we detach but still be committed to our practice? We'll continue to be here for just a couple more breaths, inviting in this deeper sense of breathing to further your mind-body connection today. Again, this practice of Yoga Sutra 1.12 is known as Abhyasa and Vairagya. And I can spell that out in the chat because it's two pretty lengthy words. But these two principles really do lie at the heart of yoga. On one hand, abhyasa can be understood as really unwavering commitment to your practice. Vairagya, non-attachment, speaks to our willingness of letting go of really all of our attachments to self-identity, to fancy yoga poses, or maybe even a particular style of practice. So we'll be moving into these different ideas today, just taking it all in, leaning into the insights of your own personal experience, and know that there's no right or wrong in this space. Letting go of any judgment that might come up and wanting to define these paradoxes. As again, in a Western society, we always are trying to understand and define. So wherever you're at on your mat right now, let's meet up into a tabletop position and start to get more into our movement practice today. All right. From tabletop, start to take your own variation of cat-cow to inhale, look up, and exhale, look down. And continue to move in your own way. It can be wagging your tail side to side, or maybe taking some circular movements. We'll be here for just a couple more breaths, really starting to ease into this practice today. Knowing that the shapes don't really define us, but the shapes also bring us insight. So there's that duality again. The paradox that we take yoga poses to find insight, but the poses don't mean anything at all. I laugh because my brain continues to define and wants to really lean in and understand. But how can we come into that more neutral space today? Let's press back into our first downward facing dog, just kind of sensing where we're at today, how we can continue to show up physically into our bodies. And know that you can stay in a tabletop position instead if that is your preference. Continuing to advocate for your own practice, your own body, your own way of movement. We'll be here for about 2 to 3 more breaths. Using our Ujjayi breath, that inhale in and exhale out through our nose to power up our practice today. Is that internal heat that we can use for deeper guidance into different poses. And on your next breath, we'll meet back towards a tabletop position. Let's lower down knees, chest, and chin to slide forward towards our belly for our first Cobra Pose. Untuck the toes, inhale, lift your chest. Exhale, lower back down. We'll do that a couple more times, continuing to warm up into our backs. Inhale, lift, and exhale, lower. Last time, inhale, lift. Exhale, lower down. Child's pose, press back. Toes together, knees wide. We'll continue to stay here. Thread that right arm underneath the left. Drop the right cheek down towards the ground. And while you're here, continuing to notice your breath. And noticing the polarities that might come up in your consciousness with continuing to practice the poses, but then also letting go to the attachment of the pose itself. Switch sides. We can use our breath not only to move into the physicality of the pose, but also use the breath as a specific guide of awareness to help us move in and out of these polarities today. So the breath is a deeper guide to both physical and spiritual practices for these next 60 minutes that we have. Let's meet back towards a tabletop position. Tuck the toes, downward facing dog, press back. Take your gaze forward. Step all the way towards the top of the mat to meet your hands. Take a slight bend at your knees. Ragdoll pose, or maybe just allow the arms to hang down. Continue to relax the weight of the head. Any shape that you'd like to make here with any additional movement. We'll be continuing to warm up our body through sun salutations. And then we'll start to move into a deeper hip opening sequence. So just using these cues that I'm suggesting as different boundaries to advocate for your body today, but also know that we're moving with curiosity and experimentation to continue to move us towards non-attachment in each pose that we move into. Release the hands down if you had them bound, and slowly lift all the way up towards a standing position. Maybe give yourself a couple shoulder rolls or move your head side to side while in this mountain pose, especially since I know that I'm at the computer a lot these days, especially with all this virtual learning. So really allowing yourself to take any movement that feels good in your body, even during each posture that we take. We'll meet towards the top of our mat. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale, hands towards the shins or maybe towards the blocks. Step your left leg back for your lunge, either knee up or knee down. Press back plank position. Again, you can take knees, chest, chin once again, or maybe chaturanga with or without the knees. Inhale, either cobra or upward facing dog to lift the quads, and downward facing dog, press back. What's so amazing about any movement that we take on our body, especially in a yoga practice, we enter into poses that we continue to repeat a lot through the class. So getting curious about how your body might shift, but also releasing attachment to the shifts of your body. And there's that polarity again. Take your gaze forward. Step your left leg forward for your lunge. Again, knee can drop down if that's your preference, or use your blocks for your practice today. Step up towards the top, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, forward fold, come back down. Inhale, reach up, arms high. Hands toward your heart center, exhale. We'll move through sun salutations 2 more times with this similar flow. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Right leg steps back this time. Step back, high plank. Knowing that you can always skip your vinyasas, we're meeting towards downward facing dog in your own breath. If child's pose is where you want to move anytime during this class, go for it. That's definitely the beauty of a virtual class, is that you can do anything at all, deviate from the sequence. Take one more breath in your downward facing. Then step that right leg forward for your lunge. Step towards the top, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise up. And hands towards your heart center. And we'll take this one more time. Inhale, reach up. Continue to move with your breath, halfway, all the way down. Halfway lift, inhale. Left leg, step it back. Plank pose, right leg meets the left. An option for your chaturanga, up dog. And again, we meet downward facing dog. Let's take a quick child's pose once again. Maybe a quick sip of water if you want to grab maybe hot tea. While we're here, if you'd like to add on, bend at your elbows, hands in a prayer position, top of your thumbs behind your head towards the top of your spine. So I've definitely been working with my therapist on this duality and these paradoxes of life. As like I said, I always want to figure things out. And a bit of background about me is I have my PhD in education, and the scientific method has been ingrained in my brain. So it's quite interesting to see when paradoxes show up, how I respond to different things like that, and how, again, I try to take the scientific method to figure things out. But there's also other ways of knowing that we are given this feminine understanding, this softness, this ease of not having to define. So moving into this embodiment during this practice today to listen deeply to our physical body, our spiritual body, and our consciousness. They all give us deeper cues of understanding that the scientific method doesn't necessarily provide. So continue to lean in with grace and understanding. and maybe not full understanding. And how can we be okay with that? Let's take one more breath in your own variation of child's pose. Downward facing dog is where we meet. We'll start to build a flow, moving deeper into our hips. We'll move slow at first, just getting acquainted with each pose that we come into, and then we'll move one breath, one movement. On your next breath, lift that right leg up towards the ceiling for your three-legged dog. Maybe you want to do this in tabletop. Step forward to find warrior two. Pivot that back foot so the arch is intersecting, the heel is intersecting with the arch of the back foot. And T-shape through the arms. Steady your gaze here to steady your body. And we're deep listening into more of that somatic experience from head to toe, rather than getting caught in our head all the time. And please know that whenever I'm cueing different things, a lot of it is also speaking from my own experience. So maybe that resonates with you today. Let's take a star pose. Turn the feet towards the left side of your mat. So they're a bit pigeon-toed. Inhale, reach your arms up. And goddess pose, turn the feet out. Take your arms wide so it looks like a field goal shape. Then you can sink as low as you want here into your hips, still lifting into your pelvic floor to stay active into your core. Tendency is the hips want to pop out, meaning like that little booty pop. But can you tuck the tailbone, still holding upright into your spine? Inhale, reach your arms high, back towards star. Then we're back towards warrior two, front of the mat again. Reverse your warrior, reach back. All right, we're going to stay here a couple breaths. Great option for the strap for this arm variation we'll be taking. So let's first start out by giving ourselves a pat on the back with that right hand. Couple options. Left hand can go towards the elbow, or you can grab your strap, towel, whatever, to grab left hand behind the back. So we're moving towards cow face arms, Gomukasana arms. Maybe you grab towards your shirt instead, but continue to get that side body stretch, sink down into your right leg, still keeping that 90-degree bend, or even just slightly bent. Last breath here. Release the hands. Side angle pose, right arm down, left arm high. You can place that strap off to the side or whatever you might have used for that bind. So we continue to use our arm strength to press into our inner thigh line. Your elbow can stay up towards the inner thigh line. Also a great place for a block, either inside or even outside of that right foot. And gaze can either be up or down. So knowing that there's tons of different variations of each pose, knowing that you don't even have to take the pose if you don't want to. All right, extend bicep by your ear, reach forward to elongate more into that left side body. We're changing this up into a twist. Drop that left hand down, pivot on the back heel, right arm up. Great place to drop the knee down. We'll stay for about one more breath. Take your gaze down, right hand comes down to frame that top foot. And then we'll move towards a standing L. So kind of looks like a warrior three. Chest is lifted, arms are down. Also a wonderful place for the blocks to bring the ground closer to you. So that back leg is pretty active. My foot is flexed just to help connect deeper towards my core. Maybe you roll the shoulder blades down your back a bit more to help elongate your neck. Shiva squat, draw that left knee in behind the right, still chest stays lifted. Then extend it back to find standing L. Left leg meets the right to find your chair pose. Glutes as low as you'd like them to be. Maybe arms are lifted or hands towards the heart center. We'll be taking a water wheel twist, so different variation of the twist in our chair. So traditionally, when we see a twisted chair, it tends to be hands towards heart center. So again, connect to the core first, then start to open your arms towards the left side of your mat. Arms open. Again, just notice what that left hip wants to do, which usually wants to pull back. Can you keep those hips squared off? Reach all the way back up towards your chair pose, arms high. On your exhale, forward fold, release. Halfway lift, inhale, step back towards your high plank. Your choice if you'd like a vinyasa here to lower down towards your up dog. And again, we meet downward facing dog. About 3 to 5 breaths. I'm going to get a quick sip of water because I just realized how parched I am. Last 2 breaths in your downward facing or maybe child's pose before we move towards the other side. Again, keep your props close by wherever you'd like them. And continue to take notice of how your brain is responding. Really trying to guide us towards that deeper somatic understanding rather than solely staying in your brain. On your next inhale, lift your left leg up. Warrior 2, step it forward. Take your time to rise up. Gaining your footing here, feeling out this side of your body. Try not to necessarily define the experience. Let's move towards star pose. Turn the feet over towards the right side of the mat. Inhale, reach up. And goddess pose, sink back down. So I'll turn towards you. While you're here in goddess, if you want to get deeper into the hips, take your hands towards your inner thigh line. Then just drop one shoulder down. So you even feel a slight twist. And then switch sides. Come back towards the center. We'll meet back towards star. Inhale, lift up. And warrior 2, back towards the top of the mat. Left knee is bent now. Reverse your warrior, reach back. Again, we're going to go for the cow face bind, the Gomukasana arms. So you can give yourself a literal pat on the back and even energetically feel that. You're like, oh, I got this. Maybe you want to stay here. Right hand can come towards the left elbow. Also, option to move where you just grab your shirt or even a strap. Maybe you reach for the fingertips. So to continue to lift into your left side body, stay bent into your front leg, even if it's just a slight bend. Take one more full breath. On your exhale, we move to find side angle arms, releasing the bind. Again, wonderful place for a block. We continue to open up our inner thigh line and our chest. We'll be taking a counter pose in just a second. One more breath, inhale. Exhale, release, find your twist. Right arm comes down, pivot on the back heel. Maybe the back knee drops. Lift your top arm. Last breath. Exhale, drop your gaze, top arm down. Maybe hands towards a block. We're getting ready to move towards that standing L for our balance transition. Lift that back leg up. Chest stays lifted, almost like warrior 3 upper body, or even Cobra Pose upper body. Really working on squaring off the hips. All of this is just to gain awareness in our physical postures with all this different cueing. Option is stay, or draw that right knee behind your left for Shiva squat. Kick back. And we meet again, chair pose. Right leg meets the left. Inhale, lift your upper body. Again, maybe you want to stay here or add on your water wheel arms twist. So this time we're opening up towards the right. And we'll see this water wheel variation later where we'll add on. Back towards chair pose arms. Inhale. Exhale, forward fold, drop the upper body down. Halfway lift, inhale. Again, step back, move through your vinyasa. And we'll again meet towards child's pose, grabbing whatever you need before we start to move. One breath, one movement. One of the reasons why I really like to do, to build the sequence first and then move in your own way, is it really allows us to get deeper into our soma, our body, that deep body awareness that we might not be able to get into when we enter in the first time around. Where a lot of the times we're judging our experience the first time we get into a pose. You're like, oh, what is this? What do I need to do here? So as we start to move into one breath, one movement, just allow yourself to move towards that flow, just gaining further insight in how your body's moving. All right, let's meet towards downward facing dog again. So same options here. Lift your right leg up, inhale. Warrior two, step it forward. Lift up. Inhale, rise, star pose. Exhale, goddess. Turn the legs out, feel gold the arms. Inhale, reach up, star. Back towards warrior two, top of the mat. Again, going with your own breath. Reverse your warrior. We're going to stay here about an extra breath or two to go towards the bind. And know that you can keep the bind as we move towards side angle, and I'll show you in just a second. If you're wanting to keep the bind, just start to lean forward so it looks as if you're taking side angle. But if you're wanting to take full side angle, go for it. Right arm down, left arm high. Again, we stay an extra breath to really feel this pose out. And take your twist, drop your left arm down. Inhale, reach your right arm up. Exhale, drop your top arm back down. Standing L, inhale, lift up. Exhale, Shiva squat, left knee behind the right. Inhale, kick back. Exhale, left foot meets the right, chair pose. Inhale, reach your arms up. Stay for an exhale. Inhale, left arm opens, water wheel the arms. Exhale, take the arm back forward. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold, drop your hands down. Move through your vinyasa, inhale. Exhale, step back. Chaturanga, lower down on the exhale. Inhale, cobra or upward dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Again, about 3 to 5 breaths, maybe child's pose, or whatever it is that you need. Maybe you need to shift the props. I'm going to grab another sip of water. Apparently, I'm very thirsty today. About one more full breath. And we again begin our flow on the other side. Left leg up. Step it forward. Warrior two. Inhale. Stay for the exhale. Inhale, reach your arms up, star pose. Exhale, goddess. Inhale, reach back up, star. Warrior two, exhale, front of the mat. Inhale, reverse your warrior. Set up your cow face arms. Again, we'll stay an extra breath or two to give you time to enter in. Know that you don't have to take your side angle arms if you didn't want to, but let's transition towards our side angle when you're ready. Inhale, lift your arm up. Stay for an extra breath. On your exhale, drop your hand down. Inhale, lift that top arm up. Exhale, release your top arm. Inhale, back leg lifts. Exhale, right knee behind the left, Shiva squat. Inhale, kick back. Exhale, chair pose legs. Inhale, reach your arms up. We stay on the exhale. When you're ready, inhale, open up the arms, water wheel twist towards the right side of the mat. Exhale, draw that right arm back forward. Inhale, reach the arms up one last time. Exhale, forward fold, release. Halfway lift, inhale. Step or maybe jump back. Again, move through your flow. We again meet child's pose. Know that if child's pose is not where you're feeling inspired or authentic, take any other pose that you might want. It might be a dolphin pose, a back bend, really anything at all for these next couple breaths. Take one last round of breath here in whatever shape that you're in. We're testing the waters again in different shapes. Downward facing dog is where we meet. Take that right leg up now. Bend your knee, open your hip. Option to stay or maybe flip your dog. If you're flipping, ground that right foot down, press the hips up, heart high. We'll all meet back towards three-legged down dog and step forward to find warrior one. So different feet than warrior two legs. Inhale, reach your arms up. For this transition, reach your arms back, so jet airplane the arms. So it's not all the way dropped down. We're really looking to just shift the weight into that right glute and stay uplifted into your chest, active core. So it's going to feel similar to that standing L that we did. Warrior three, lift that back leg up. Left leg meets the right, mountain pose. So very similar arm shape that we did in chair pose, where we'll take water wheel arms. Pay attention to what happens where that right hip wants to pull back when we move into a twist in our standing position. So mountain pose legs, right arm reaches back, left arm forward. Again, tendency is to want to pull back into the hips. We're really just getting into the thoracic here. Reach all the way back up. Inhale, arms high. We're taking an airplane lunge. Reach the arms back. Step that left leg back. Reach the left arm forward now. Warrior two, open up. So fun arm transitions, just making things a bit more lighthearted since we are exploring some intense polarity. Reverse your warrior, reach back. And let's move to find triangle pose. So still grounding down into each foot. Right arm stays down, left arm up. Wonderful place for the blocks again. To place a block in between your hand and the ground. Any shapes that you want to make with the upper body. Maybe a half bind or a full bind. Last breath here. In your variation of your twist, it can be that twisted lunge that we took just earlier in the other sequence, or maybe you want to go for twisted triangle. If you're taking twisted triangle, step that back foot in some so you can help square off the hips. Again, block is wonderful here. Left arm down, right arm up. And again, if you didn't want to take twisted triangle, you can go back to that runner's lunge twist. So kind of similar shapes, but just moving into the body in a slightly different way. Last breath. Exhale, release that top arm down. Standing split, lift your back leg up. So the difference between standing L and split is that we're focusing on dropping our head down in this standing split posture. Doesn't matter how high that back leg gets, still testing our balance here. When you're ready, left leg meets the right. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold. Before we transition into a vinyasa, we'll meet into a yoga squat. So turn those feet out. Wonderful place again for the block to have underneath your sacrum for support. Hands towards heart center. Also the option to play in crow pose. We'll be here for about 2 to 3 breaths in whatever shapes that you're creating. I find that when I am more connected to my body, listening more deeply to my breath, my judgment mind starts to quiet a bit. I'm able to come into that flow, the conscious flow, not just the physical flow of our body. Whatever you're taking, move through your own vinyasa. And it can look just by like stepping back towards downward facing or adding in your chaturanga, up dog. Then again, we'll meet downward facing dog. Again, same flow on the other side. Left leg goes up. Bend your knee, open your hip. Option to stay or flip. A reminder, if you are flipping, we're meeting back towards that 3-legged to send us forward towards our warrior 1. Setting up the feet first, getting stable, then adding the upper body. We'll start to transition towards that airplane warrior 1 legs. Setting up the upper body first, then shifting to lift your back leg up for warrior 3. Again, continue to steady your gaze, to steady your body, especially in balance poses. Right leg meets the left, mountain pose. This time we'll, again, open arm twist for water wheel arms. I always smile at myself in yoga because I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to open up that hip, but just changing things up today, seeing how I respond to it. It's always quite interesting where my brain goes. Reach back forward, inhale. Let's move to find airplane lunge again. Reach the arms back, step that right leg back. This time we'll send that right arm forward. Playing with this transition, warrior 2, open up. Reverse your warrior, reach back. In triangle pose, straighten through your front leg. Left arm down, right arm high. Again, grab what you need while you're here. We'll be here for the same amount of time. About 2 more breaths in your triangle. And we're making our way back towards our twist. Drop your hand down. Again, either runner's lunge twist with the knee bent or twisted triangle with that back foot step slightly in. Start to really squeeze the inner thigh line together. Then staying in your twist for a couple breaths. Take one more full breath here. And exhale, drop that top arm down. Standing split. Lift the back leg up. And just continue to work on dropping the head. Knowing that the same standing L is always available if it doesn't feel comfortable to drop the head. I can definitely fully acknowledge that when I had a concussion, like dropping my head was definitely not an option in yoga. So always knowing to support yourself, advocate for your experience and what poses you take today. Wherever you're at, we meet right leg towards the left. One more time for a yoga squat. Open up the feet, lower the hips down. Hands towards the heart center. Get another chance to play in crow if that is your preference. We're about to move towards the floor. Again, continuing these deep hip openers that we've been really seeing all of class. Last breath here. Straighten out the legs. Step back towards your plank. Get another option to take your flow. We're meeting towards downward facing dog. And we'll just use this as transition to move forward towards our pigeon. So if you're wanting to take pigeon on your belly, step that right leg forward. Know that the back leg can be straight, or if you wanted to take 90-90, the left knee can also be bent and then fold forward. If you're like, no, Kelsey, not today on my belly, maybe you want to try double pigeon. We're going to be moving towards full cow pose in just a second. Or you can come down onto your back and cross the right leg over the left. We'll be here for about 7 to 10 breaths in whatever shape that you're taking. When we come into longer holds, usually the mind likes to attach some more to different things, especially when we're starting to come into deeper stillness. Continuing to acknowledge the somatic experience that we're moving towards and into. And so all class, we've been really leaning into the theme of polarity. And that within a yoga class, we always see different cues of alignment. So that's the practice component, showing up, doing the practice. But then once we're in the pose, we can start to lean deeper into non-attachment. So by letting go a little bit into how you're showing up into each posture. Pigeon is definitely one of those more humbling experiences and how we show up in it and move into it. Let's take one more full breath. Before we move towards the other side, we're going to be taking Gomukasana. So we took the arm shape earlier, so you might want to grab your strap. Right foot is still forward. If you had the back foot around, go ahead and swing that leg around. All right, couple options here. So a lot of the times, what I tend to see is that people are trying to force their legs into the pose. Please know that when we are moving towards our practice, everybody moves differently, and showing up to advocate for a safe space in our practice is priority number one. So if you find that your leg is up here, that's totally fine. If you notice that you're just crisscrossing the legs, you can stay right here. Maybe you want to start to move the knees closer together. So finding the Gomukasana legs can either be what looks like you're setting up for a twist, or even taking the knees together. You can also do this on your back. And this sometimes feels a lot more supportive to take the cow face pose legs. Just grab onto the outer edge of the feet. But of course, if you wanted to add the upper body in, we have that option as well, to give ourselves a pat on the back with the right hand towards the back body. Maybe again, you take left hand onto the elbow, or even go for the bind with the strap, or grab your shirt or your fingertips. While you're here, again, there's always different options to go. We can think of it like a yoga buffet and how we're exploring our body into different shapes. Maybe you want to drop your chest a little bit lower. We won't be here for that much longer. If you have the arms, go ahead and release. Let's unwind the legs, crisscross the legs again, and then just step back towards a tabletop. Again, same option to move through your flow. We're going to be moving towards downward facing dog once again to transition to pigeon pose on the other leg. Again, doesn't have to be the exact same thing that you took on this side. Continuing to advocate for your body in each moment. Let's move towards pigeon pose on the opposite leg. Left leg starts to move forward. Again, back leg can be straight or bent for 90-90. Maybe onto your back body. Again, we'll have the same amount of time, and then we'll be moving again towards cow face pose. Maybe you try cow face this time on your back after we are moving out of pigeon. Using the breath continually as a guide. With focus, with softness. About 2 more breaths in your pigeon. And start to lift up. If you're taking cow face on your seat, on your glutes, go ahead and sit up. If you wanted to stay on your back body, just cross the knees like you would in cow face pose. So again, I'll demo by seated up first. Left leg leads in front, and then right leg is going to be the one that crosses this time. And you can come into what looks like you're moving towards a twist, or start to move the knees closer together. And same shape for the legs on your back, but then the hands would come again onto the outer edge of your feet. And just a different shape. You're receiving the same benefit mostly into the lovely IT bands, I should say. Option to stay with your legs if you wanted to add the upper body. Left hand pats your back. Right hand can come onto the elbow, or maybe you're wanting to go for the bind. You can continue to sit up tall into your spine, lengthen through your neck, or maybe you start to just shift your upper body forward a bit. I'm very grateful for the fact that no pose is ever the same on the daily, where one day I'm like, oh, this feels really good. The other day I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to take this pose today. And again, it's like the idea of polarity where it's not really ever the same. Multiple things can exist at once. Whatever you're taking, release the upper body first. We'll meet into a straddle. So countering what we just did in our cow face pose, if you're lying down on your back, feel free to stay there for the rest of class. If you wanted to join me in straddle, you're more than welcome to. You might want to grab a block to place underneath your hip bones just to help tilt that pelvic floor. Toes are flexed just to protect the knees. You can continue to hang out, lift it up into your upper body, or start to move down towards a forward fold. We'll be here for a couple breaths if you wanted to explore by walking your hands towards one side. I was just thinking about that. Like I used to be a high school teacher, and now I'm a professor. So it's quite interesting how this philosophy seen in Yoga Sutra 1.12 has also impacted my teaching, my school teaching. We're taking into account that multiple things can exist at once. It has allowed me to extend even more grace than before to my students and also to myself. That knowing that there can be multiple things that happen in the classroom and even in my teaching. We'll be here for just about 1 to 2 more breaths. So if you did take one side, you can try to switch it out for the other. Let's lift up, turn back forward. So we're working on external rotation. Let's go back to internal rotation. For a seated forward fold, great place for a strap or maybe just a slight bend at the knees if that's your preference. Set up. If you have the strap or towel, place it around the balls of the feet. Pull the shoulders back. Lead with that open collarbone and start to send that chest forward. You don't have to go too far really in order to feel this. You could even stay upright into your seat into a staff pose. We'll come on to our back body. I'm going to be demoing a restorative fish for the back bend today. If you want to move into bridge or wheel, go for it. But there's 2 blocks here. If you have 2 blocks or you want to go for a fish without the blocks, that's an option too. But when we're setting up this restorative fish, it kind of looks like a T position where my head is on to the top part of the T. It could be a little bit longer depending upon how your upper body is shaped. But then this part is going to go in between your shoulder blades. So it could be the lower height or medium height. Just finding a place of a back bend of your choice. Again, if you'd like to join me in this restorative fish pose, it feels really lovely onto the collarbone to find that pectoral opening. And hands can be down by your side body or even outstretched into a T shape for a deeper chest opener. And I'll be cueing us out of this posture in about 3 to 5 breaths. So know that you have some time to play if you're moving towards something else. Knowing that there's also this polarity of human experience, that even in a yoga class, multiple things can exist at once. So I can be taking a different pose than you, and we can still be practicing our authentic experience in yoga. About 2 to 3 last breaths. And let's move into an inversion of your choice today. I'm going to continue to use my blocks to move into waterfall. Again, options for y'all tuning in at home can be shoulder stand, can be headstand, even downward facing dog is an inversion. But if you're wanting to take waterfall like I'm demoing right now, you can use the block, or maybe you don't want to use the block today. And just allow your legs to lift, really not muscling into this position, but even just having a soft bend at the knees, kind of letting gravity do its thing. And it might even feel nice to move the legs around a bit, or even circle out the ankles or release through the toes. It'll be one of our final postures before moving towards Shavasana. We'll stay about an extra 2 breaths. And slowly descending to take your final twist, removing any blocks out from underneath. Hug your knees in towards your chest. And drop your knees towards one side. Continue to lower the shoulders into the mat below. And gaze can be up or even away from your bent knees. Switch sides. Watching out for your props. I feel like it's a sign of a good yoga class when all the props are all over the mat in different places. Let's give ourselves one last hug. Knees towards your chest, round your nose to meet your knees. Big squeeze. And finding your way into your final rest of your Shavasana. We'll be here for just about 2 minutes. Coming into a comfortable seat. Or even lying down, wherever you want to take this for your final rest. There's a Carl Jung quote that really speaks into this idea of the Yoga Sutra that we've been looking at today, where it says that reason sets the boundaries far too narrowly for us and would have us accept only the known, and that too with limitations. And really live in a known framework. Just as if we were sure how far life actually extends. As a matter of fact, day after day, we live far beyond the bounds of our own consciousness. When we really start to lean into paradoxes, we start to move into other ways of knowing, listening more deeply to not just the known of our own understanding, but getting curious into the unknown. So let's start to move out of your Shavasana, knowing that you can stay in it if you have the time. Just taking some movement into your body to start to exit out